This summer, Portland Spirit is offering daily opportunities to experience our beautiful city on a boat, which if you haven't done, you gotta do. There are sunset dinner cruises every day at 7 p.m., daily lunch rides, and Sunday brunch with bottomless mimosas and no lines. You can also kick back on a happy hour cruise, which we've done as a team and it was a total delight, or crank up the excitement with a jet boat ride to the Columbia River Gorge. For all details and to book your adventure, head over to portlandspirit.com. That's portlandspirit.com. Now that the weather is amazing, you can go explore our bridges and the bike-friendly paths of Portland's 5 inner districts on Biketown e-bikes or scooters. One great ride is the Steel Bridge to the Hawthorne Bridge, a scenic 3-mile loop that has you riding right along the waterfront on a cool floating path. You can check the Lyft app to find a bike near you, and new riders can use code CityCast25 for a free unlock. The process is easy, just pick out a bike and use the Lyft app to scan its QR code, but please wear a helmet.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about how local schools are struggling to manage extreme heat. A new law that's aiming to protect local ownership of doctors' offices and clinics, and an exciting new outdoor store that is opening its doors for their grand opening today. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week reporter and author Brianna Wheeler and our very own senior producer, Giulia Fiaoni. It's Friday, June 13th. I'm executive producer John Notarianni in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday News Roundup. Brianna, Giulia, thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you who are new to the show, today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists here in town. But before we get into the news, I usually like to ask an opening question so you can get to know our guests just a little bit better. Today's opening question is actually based in yesterday's episode. We talked with Portland Mercury music editor Nolan Parker about all the outdoor shows that are coming up this summer. Mm-hmm. And this conversation was so much fun. There were so many things that I want to go and check out. The ambient music show in the Botanical Gardens.
Oh my gosh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Sounds amazing. But my question for you guys, what is your most memorable live music experience in Portland? What's the show that you went to that just sticks in your mind and you're just like, oh my God, that was so great? I can go first. I'm thinking about 2 years ago, I went to the last show at the Doug Fir. The final show that they had, because they were closing, they were going to move, and they had Johnny Franco play along with Ural Thomas and The Pain.
Yeah.
And it was just I'd seen so many shows in that room, and to go to this concert where everybody had clearly lived through years and years of going to shows at this one venue, and you could just feel the energy that people didn't want to leave. They didn't want it to be over, but there was still this really sweet spirit of community at this concert. It was so great.
Oh, I feel like the energy in that room must have been just explosive because of how, honestly, Johnny Franco's shows are always that way.
Mm-hmm.
To combine the two artists and then put everyone in that space, that just sounds like such a nice time.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen Johnny Franco.
Oh.
I was just like, who is this guy? And I was like, oh, okay. I like what you got going on.
Okay, John, I have one for you. So this was an experience I had at Mississippi Studios where the opener was so good, I forgot who I was actually going to the show for now when I think back on it. So the opener was an artist called Jennifer Vanilla, and they're an experimental, pop techno artist that really just puts on a show on stage where it's just a one-man band type situation. But the most memorable moment was when, in the middle of their set, they brought out one of those mini trampolines and drag it out into the middle of the crowd.
Yes.
And was singing their song while jumping on it. It was incredible.
Hot.
It was such a good time. And I remember I ran into them at an art gallery later on that month. And I went up to them and kind of fangirling, being like, oh my God, the trampoline. It was such a fun time. But yeah, that's definitely the most memorable.
Awesome.
That's awesome. What about you, Brianna?
I think my most memorable is Janelle Monáe came through town. She was up at the RV amphitheater in, what is it, Hoodland or Woodland? Just over the border in Washington. I mean, it is a huge venue for huge acts, but Janelle Monáe Black artist just was not pulling in like an enormous crowd up there. And what ended up happening was like an intimate show with Janelle Monáe. Are you kidding me? I died 1,000 deaths that night. I mean, besides the fact that she like puts on like a Beyonce level production show that's like a life-changing revelatory experience, like I felt like I could touch her most of the time too. So
Oh my
I think
God.
that was the one for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, on to the news of the week. Brianna, what do you got?
I would love to share with you Natalie Pate's reporting for OPB this week regarding how many Oregon schools are not equipped to handle the extreme temperatures that we are currently facing. So parents already know. Portland Public Schools and lots of other districts released students early from classes and canceled after-school programs on Monday because of the extreme heat, because of the continued high temperatures. So it's important to know, the baseline here, that the average K-12 school building in Oregon, 56 years old. And it is costly and it is complicated to fix them. They've got poor infrastructure and they are not prepared for high summer heat. They are not prepared for chilling winter lows. And this is a huge topic around union negotiations, around the strikes. And it's getting worse because the temperatures are getting higher. Climate is getting more intense. So Oregon's Department of Education, we've got an Office of School Facilities, and they provide free district-wide facility condition assessments and technical support. They administer the Oregon School Capital Improvement Matching Program. It matches grants to districts if they pass a local general obligation bond. It basically encourages communities to invest in their local schools, since the school districts have the final say on how to use the funds. So as Natalie puts it, this is like the nitty-gritty of how these decisions and improvements are made. That is why so many Oregon schools they are not equipped for what is coming. Did either of you do K-12 in Oregon?
No.
I didn't know. I grew up in Michigan.
Oh, wow. Well, I bet those schools were really cold in the winter.
Swamp summers in Michigan, yeah.
I was in LA County, so they knew the hot was hot and
Right.
there was AC blasting everywhere.
Right.
Like we couldn't have done school all year round if we didn't have proper AC.
Yeah, I'm from LA too. So the idea of like these school, like I think anybody that's been inside of one of these older school buildings in Portland are like, wow, they're really like keeping the history alive in here. They're really keeping it going. So case in point in this story about how are we going to get to where we need to be so that we can teach children? So we've got this case study for the Gervais School District. Gervais High School opened in 1965. No heating, no cooling system, of course. The elementary school built in 1934. A year ago, only 1 year ago, Gervais passed its first school construction bond in more than 30 years after 8 failed attempts. And this is kind of heartbreaking. The district, it wasn't expected to survive without this bond. That's over 1,200 students. Just, peace out. So the voters approved a $28 million capital construction bond. Comes with an additional $6 million from the state's matching capital improvements program. We avoid the closure of the district. And the Gervais superintendent, Dandy Stevens, which, oh my God, you guys, that name.
That is a name.
That's a dandy name.
Stevens. Oh, I love it. Okay, so Ms. Stevens tells OPB, quite frankly, were we to have tackled every project that we need to have done, it would have been over $100 million. So over the last 3 years, she says, they had to whittle down just the basics, safety, security, appropriate learning environments to come up with a $34 million price tag. So over the last year, they're planning how to improve these structures and realizing it's just so much harder to remodel old existing buildings than to just start new, but that's all they can do. And Dandy told OPB that these existing buildings, they were not built for airflow. They were not built for air quality. And like clutch your pearls, a lot of them still contain asbestos, lead-based products. And all of those things need to be worked around, which adds more cost to construction. And then on top of that, construction costs in general, through the roof. Because of all of this uncertainty around tariffs, because of all of this general unavailability of products. And a lot of districts aren't even sure if they're going to be reimbursed by the federal government because of expected cuts from the administration. Yikes.
Oh, God.
This is one of those stories that's like, on one hand, we've heard it before. Like, Oregon schools are hot. They don't have good AC. But it's also just like, fuck!
It is so.
Yeah.
Because there's so much investment that needs to happen, you know? I mean, there's been all this discussion about unreinforced masonry and like the school might just collapse.
Totally.
And it's like, well, we should deal with that first. Like that is priority number one. But it doesn't mean that these schools that are just sweltering hot and don't have adequate AC, like that, it needs to be a priority too.
It really does.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where, like, in the wintertime, they're having snow days. In the summertime, they're getting out hours earlier. And it's just directly cutting into students' education. Like, there's no way around it. And the thing is, too, is like, I live in a 100-year-old brick exterior building. My apartment's on the top floor. When it hits like 2 p.m., I'm looking for an early out of my remote job and I can't focus. I'm like falling asleep at the wheel.
That's when Giulia ends up at Dear Sandy for the rest of the day. Yeah.
I literally have to leave. It's impossible to get anything done. You get like instant heat headaches.
Totally.
And these are kids, right? Like, even if they weren't having that hard of a time, if their peers are, they're going to follow their lead. Like, it's just a recipe for disaster. There's no way anybody's learning during this time of year.
Yeah, it's wild.
I did actually have like a personal run-in with this. I have a friend who's a teacher and texted me and was like, yo, our kids are so hot. Like, do you happen to have a portable AC
Oh my God.
that I could put into my classroom?
Oh
like,
my God.
How bad is it when the teachers are calling the homies, talking about, can you bring me some portable fans? Can you bring me your old AC? Like, whoa, where? Oh, man, rough stuff.
Well, I mean, the thing that I'm also looking at, though, is, you know, we just passed this giant bond, right? We passed a $1.83 billion bond to sort of rebuild a bunch of schools, to do seismic retrofits, which are like all really important things. And that bond also had $190 million earmarked for major maintenance projects, right? And they said that some of that could go to upgrades at middle and elementary schools for things like heating and cooling, right? So there is a little bit of money that was just approved to hopefully chip away at this in like some situations in Portland schools. But what this reporting that you're referring to, Brianna, said that like a lot of districts don't have that option. A lot of districts just for whatever reason can't get a bond across.
Exactly.
So like even here in Portland, where it feels pretty desperate, we can go to our voters, say, please, please, please fund the schools. And like it's happened enough times.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of places in the state where that's just not even an option.
Yeah, the case study. Years and years and years and years of voting. And it took them almost losing the school district entirely to make the change. And like, if you're going to renovate your house, it's kind of like an understanding that once I start, whatever construction I've budgeted for, everything that I've budgeted for, I'm going to have to double the budget. I'm going to have to double the time. And it's just like a rule of renovations. So like extrapolate that into a school system and just think about how FUCKDR we are going to be.
Yeah. And in a school system that is sort of dealing with flat or declining enrollment. Like, didn't the district just lose like something like 10 or 11% of its enrollment in recent years?
Yeah.
So that also means like less students, which means less funds to do these repairs on these 75-year-old senior citizen buildings that need some work.
Right. And meanwhile, all this empty corporate real estate, a lot of battling ideas about where the importance lies, what can be done, what absolutely can't be done, what absolutely must be done. We have to save these old ass buildings. If this was a business owner could just relocate his employees and then fix everything and everything would be fine. Everybody could come back. We just don't have that option. But I kind of think we do have that option. We're just not thinking outside of the box in that way.
Yeah. Well, Brianna, you've gotten me worked up. And now I'm angry. So thank you for that. I'm taking a break.
Take a break.
When we come back, more news of the week.
Test, test, check 1, 2. You know you need unique New York. You know you need unique New York. Does that sound all right? Ah, that's better. You can always tell something's missing when you get isolated results. Like AI that's only right for one of your systems. Get AI that can work across your data and applications. Learn more at IBM.com. The AI built for business. IBM.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Cerama Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection. Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
All right, you guys, I've got a story about some pretty good news, actually, coming out of the state legislature. This is from some great reporting by Shantanu Guneri at the Oregon Capitol Chronicle. The legislative session is happening. It's wrapping up in a few weeks. And I wanted to take a look at a bill that had actually kind of flew under my radar initially. This is Senate Bill 951. The governor just signed it into law earlier this week. And it is approving some of the strictest limits in the country on the influence of private equity on healthcare in Oregon, specifically about corporate control of local medical practices. So basically, you don't want your doctor's office around the corner from your house to be bought up by a mega corporation. Because what happens is these corporations come in, they start getting super rigid on cost controls, and the quality of care goes down a ton. There is an existing rule in Oregon that doctors have to have at least a 51% stake in most medical practices in Oregon. Not really talking about mega hospitals or anything, but again, your local primary care office. But some corporations have sort of been getting around that by just hiring their own doctors and being yeah, Dr. So-and-so who lives in Nevada is an owner of this local doctor's office in Oregon. And then they can come in and make decisions about spending and staffing levels and the price of services. It's not good. Also, there's been an issue where some of these major corporations have bought up these healthcare systems and come in and put in non-compete agreements. So even if a doctor is fuck this place, I don't want to work here, they can't go and work at another doctor's office in the same community.
Oh my God.
This new bill is trying to change all of that, though. It's trying to cut out that loophole and make it so that local ownership and local decisions have to happen locally. And in a situation like we are right now, where there is so much uncertainty in healthcare for a million reasons, this is actually really good news.
Super good.
What do you guys think? What's your relationship with your local doctor's office?
This just makes me think of a recent example, and this is separate of the type of doctor's office you're talking about, John. This is speaking about therapy practice in particular, which I know is outside of this law. But I've suffered the reality of a mega corporation coming in and buying out the office that my therapist worked at.
No.
And they ended up moving to a new office many, many miles away out of basically protests alongside their coworkers. And it puts me in a position where I'm well, I'm not going to stick around because this is not seeming like a healthy work environment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to follow you. But that creates weeks, sometimes months of delays and having to reapply as a patient, trying to renegotiate rates. And it's just a mess. So I think about this on a scale of folks looking for care for more desperate circumstances, and it needs to be addressed. So this is something that's really hopeful.
Yeah. Is it inappropriate for me to say that when Tina Kotek does stuff like this, it makes me horny for her?
Depends on the level of detail you get into.
That's about as detailed as I'm going to get.
Brianna, I did think man, this is one where we're going to look back years from now and be damn, Kotek, you were on to something.
I ride for Kotek. She do be tripping sometimes, but I'll ride for Kotek. For real, because then she'll pull something like this out and I'm damn, horny.
She has some heavy hitters.
Well, I did want to dig a little bit more into this isn't just a theoretical thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
Giulia, this happened to you. This has been like a really big deal happening for years in Oregon. And a lot of the attention has been around this company, Optum, where this actually happened. They bought up like a bunch of healthcare practices in Oregon, and specifically Oregon Medical Group, which is based in Eugene. And after that happened around the year 2020, doctors were saying they had pay cuts that they were dealing with. They were dealing with staffing cuts. They had less people to help with things like medical coding. And so, a lot of the doctors were just like, fuck this. I can't work under these conditions, and left. And then a lot of people were just left without doctors after that.
Yeah.
So eventually this company did get some heat for it. They sort of pulled back on the non-compete agreements that had forced all these doctors out of the community. But this is a very real thing. And this is like a very real threat that has been happening across the country.
I love how they're like, wait, come back. We need you.
I know.
It's like, how dare you?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and there was a study that came out that basically was done by one of the biggest medical journals, the Journal of American Medical Association. This is a direct quote. Private equity investment in nursing homes has been associated with an increase in short-term mortality and changes to staffing. Literally, when this happens, it is not an exaggeration to say that people die.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of carve-outs. Like you said, Giulia, this doesn't cover behavioral health. This also doesn't cover, large hospital systems. They are sort of exempt from this, along with a number of other things. Also, so many of these doctors' offices are where you get preventative care, right? These are the places where you go to sort of get that thing checked out, to be like, what's going on with this weird mole on my side, before it does turn into a big issue. So it's also so important for preventative medicine.
And you kind of nailed that, John. One of the quotes somewhere throughout this reporting basically said, this makes it so that these decisions while you're in the doctor's office are actually being made by doctors and not corporate executives. And I just sat and visualized that. And I was like, oh yeah, corporate executives don't give a shit about preventative care. They want to push and push and push until you literally have no other option but for them to cough up something to take care of you. And it's a terrifying thought. And if this happens more and more, in a small state like Oregon, where there are only so many doctors and so many resources, you're going to feel it.
Yeah. Well, this bill doesn't go into effect immediately. There is a 3-year adjustment period. So if you're feeling sad for the corporations, they're going to be okay. They've got a couple years to figure this out, you guys. So all my corporate pearl clutchers, we're going to get through it together.
We have so many of those listening to our show.
Oh, no.
But yeah, before I wrap on this, I did just want to sort of point out some of the other things that are still not done in this legislative session. Because while I was researching this, I was like, wait, there's still a lot on the table that we need to figure out in the next 2.5 weeks. The legislative session ends June 29th. Here are the things that are still on the table that we need to get bills through on. Number 1, Tina Kotek's giant bill for a statewide homeless shelter system. That is not passed yet. And because of the big budget forecast shortfall that the legislature had about a month ago, they said that we're going to be about $500 million less in revenue than we'd initially expected for the next 2-year period. This giant spending bill is in question, and there's haggling going on over it. Along with that, wildfire prevention funding still needs to get wrapped up. That has not gone through, which clearly is very important in Oregon.
Yeah.
And the giant transportation bill that was one of the cornerstones of there's going to be a big transportation bill this session. That hasn't gone through yet either. And some reporting said that for it to get through, they need every Democratic vote, including one person who has been out all session for cancer treatments, because the vote on it is so close.
Oh, wow.
So
Jesus.
3 really big pieces of policy that hopefully we're going to see squeaking out in the next couple weeks.
Totally. It's funny. It's how are we going to not set things on fire? How are we going to get places? And how are we going to get people shelter?
Oh my God.
That's a crazy visual.
Oh my God. My blood pressure, y'all. Agita, come on.
All right, you guys. I'm sorry to make it stressful too. Giulia, your story is going to bring us back. But before we get there,
Oh, man.
let's take a quick break. All right, Giulia, what do you got for us today?
So my story this week comes from some reporting by Veronica Nocera at the Oregonian. And she's talking about how a local outdoor store is opening today in Southeast Portland, right around the corner from the soon-to-be closing Next Adventure. So the shop is called, and I'm going to butcher this, Loco por la Aventura, which means crazy for adventure. And it's a base camp mountaineering center. It's located on the corner of Southeast Oak and 6th right off of Grand. And the shop is owned and run by Anibal Roqueta and his wife, Maria Teresa Lopez. And they immigrated here from Venezuela as political refugees back in 2015. And in 2020, they decided they wanted to form the adventure group to make the outdoors more accessible, most significantly for Latino immigrants in Oregon like themselves. So they started the group, and a few years later, it was established as a nonprofit, and now they've opened their brick and mortar shop. I picked the story because it's a big deal for a few reasons. First of all, Portland's local outdoor resources have really taken a blow recently. Like I mentioned, Next Adventure is closing across the board after 28 years in business. And the old military surplus store, Andy and Bax, closed back in 2023 after almost 80 years. And I know a lot of folks really grieve that place still.
It was just up the road and it was so cool.
Yeah. And even Portland's only REI store, I know it's not local, they closed last year. It's such a funny vision because you think like Portland, you would have an abundance of outdoor stores, but it's just the situation that we're in right now. I do want to apologize. The daily dumpster truck is right outside my window. So if you hear that, that's what that is. But anyway, aside from addressing this need of having local outdoor resources, it also gives our growing Latino community an opportunity to access the outdoors and just connect in general. Back in 2015, Anibal and Maria Teresa chose Portland as their home because they were experienced mountaineers and they wanted to explore Oregon's mountain, but they themselves found it really difficult with the language barrier and just without the right community and resources to get around. So basically, the inspiration for starting their nonprofit came from this. And they have a whole bunch of things on deck in terms of events that they're going to put on. But before I get into that, how are you guys feeling about this? Is this a little good news for you? I really hope.
Love it. I am one of those people that is for sure mourning Andy and Bax. And all of the outdoor closures, because like we have an outdoor family. We moved to Oregon for the outdoor experience. So this is thrilling. So happy about it.
Yeah. So our newsletter editor, Rachel Monahan, a week or two ago, basically wrote an essay in our newsletter about the closure of Next Adventure, you know, and really articulating what I think I felt too, which is just like, you know, stores open, stores close, but this really feels like the end of an era.
Totally. Yeah.
This feels like losing this store that had been like such a sort of local anchor closing is like deeply upsetting in a way where like even an REI is not upsetting in the same way.
Yeah.
And sort of like raised the idea of like, this is kind of like a, is Portland over moment for me? And I'm just so thrilled that immediately in the same month, we see this great story about this new store that is opening sort of in the same spirit of the way that Next Adventure had originally opened as well. You know, I don't think it's intentional, but like the language that they're using, talking about access to the outdoors and wanting to really bring something to the community is sort of the similar vibe that Next Adventure had. And I was looking at it. The new store is going to be 1,600 square feet, which is the same size that Next Adventure was when it first opened in 1997, you know? So this really is sort of like a beautiful evolution of like one thing closes, something else comes in to take its place with the same spirit.
Yes.
I love those parallels that you're drawing. And I do want to get into a little bit about the things that they'll be incorporating into their business model. So their hope is to host weekly bilingual outdoor events like camping in state parks and whitewater rafting, both in English and in Spanish. So folks can get to know each other and also just get to have those experiences regardless. And they'll also be hosting bilingual workshops at the store for people to learn outdoor skills, which is awesome because of how small the store is. They're going to find a way to make it work. They said in the article that if they move some furniture around, they're able to host people, which I think is so sweet. And in general, they just really want to be a one-stop shop for outdoor gear. So there's pictures of the store. I haven't gone yet, but you should go today because they're opening up. But there's hiking boots and snowboards and carabiners, like really anything that you could need going out for an outdoor adventure. But I am going to just like step back for a second and put this into context because one of the things that really stood out to me in this article is how much the owners emphasized that they felt motivated right now to open a store like this to address the needs of Oregon's Latino population because of the actions the Trump administration has taken against immigrants across the U.S. since taking office. Most significantly, I know it's on everybody's minds, the recent ICE raids. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like the protests and the militarized responses to this have felt really like they're boiling over in the past week, especially in Los Angeles and right here in Portland, too. We had 2 more asylum seekers arrested by ICE at our immigration courthouse this week, after 2 were already arrested the week prior. It really hits home to me in a way that's sometimes hard to describe, but I just recently received my U.S. citizenship and lived most of my life in the U.S. on a green card. So I was always personally aware of the threat of deportation. And this is I'm speaking as a white lady who was dealing with this at a time where people weren't being actively targeted while literally just following the law. So I just want to emphasize how important it is to celebrate and just support folks that are still finding ways to create safe spaces for communities right now, because it's bold.
Right.
It's fucking bold to open a spot like this right now.
Right.
So my point is, they're opening today. Go visit them in Southeast. They said that they're going to have Venezuelan snacks and desserts alongside most of the store being 50% off.
Oh!
And if you can't make it today, you can go tomorrow because they're having the same sale on Saturday. And if you can't make it on Saturday, they're open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you got plenty of opportunities.
Rad.
And if you can't make it on Saturday, go whenever, because they're open, baby, because they're here.
Awesome.
And I think you're so right, just the point about safe spaces as well, that I think that we do have a tendency to sort of talk about immigration through the lens of deportation, through the lens of criminalization. But it's also it's also important just to create spaces that are welcoming and that are reflective of the real community that we have in this region. One of the things that I really appreciated was their website is very Spanish forward. You can translate it to English if you want, but we are starting with Spanish on the website.
Ooh, they letting you
because
know.
That's what we're here for, which I think is just so awesome.
Yeah. You could just tell the intentionality through and through, which is so special.
Yeah.
I see this interesting trend as we're watching these ideals, this retail ideal, small business ideal kind of crumble away, and if all of our favorite brick and mortars are closing. But I am seeing that void is being filled by these spaces that still fill those needs, but also are filling the needs of building space for community, holding space for marginalized communities, which, yes, thrilling. Awesome. Love that trend.
Yeah.
Well, Brianna, I don't think you realized that you were perfectly setting me up for what I wanted to talk about next, but we've got some shout outs. One of the new perks of being a CityCast neighbor is that you get an opportunity to shout out your favorite local businesses here on the show. So these are all from people who had joined up as members recently of CityCast Portland and just wanted to throw a shout out of a place they really love in Portland. Julia, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, I do. So this one's from Nick Coda, and they said, "Bike loud PDX exclamation point. All volunteer ran organization looking to get more Portlanders on bikes and build supportive spaces for folks looking to make Portland roads safer, more accessible, and bike friendly."
Love.
Heck yes. Love it. I've got one from Nate Irwin, who wanted to shout out the grand opening of a new queer-owned board game store called Giant Space Hamster Games.
Love.
Yeah, this is a new store at North Greeley and Ainsworth in, I believe that's Overlook. They just had their grand opening a few weeks ago, and it sounds really sweet. You can find more information at their Instagram at GS Hamster Games.
Amazing. So this last one comes from Jacob Loeb, and they're talking about Dingoes, which is an Australian sports pub. I love that name, at 8826 Southeast Stark, making a go of becoming the local spot for monovillains east of 82nd.
Love it. I also wanted to throw a shout out to the new members that have joined as CityCast neighbors since our drive a few weeks ago. So thank you so much to Yoshino O, Monica W, and Katie L. And if you want to get a neighborhood shout out, you can join as a member along with a bunch of other perks. You can find out more on our website, and we will shout you out as well. Check it out at membership.citycast.fm. That is membership.citycast.fm. Brianna, Giulia, somehow we did it. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling
okay. I think we had like a good enough amount of good news today.
Yeah,
so I'm feeling okay.
Just enough good news.
Somehow.
That should be our slogan for the show. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out with me, and hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for us this week here on CityCast Portland, but thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was Giulia Fiaoni, Francisco Kilgore, and Selena C.A. Reynolds. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is Claudia Meza. I'm executive producer John Notarianni. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drisos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We'll be back on Monday with a whole lot more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.